All right, gang, welcome back. Welcome back to class. Dominick Izzo out here in Chicago, and we're doing Wing Chun. Before we begin, make sure you wind up liking the video, subscribe to the channel, share, and comment about what you see and what you wind up wanting to see as we go on, too. Remember, tomorrow, which is Thursday, we're doing the live Q&A at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern. So it's going to be here on the YouTube channel, 3 p.m. Eastern. Just hop on. We're going to talk about what we've been doing the last 4 classes now and where we're going to be going in the future. Not to mention the fact Mondays and Wednesdays still, remember, Mondays are form days, forms, energetics, and we'll continue energetics into Wednesdays, but Wednesdays are technique days. All right, let's move forward. Class, right? So what we're going to be covering today is the continuing weapons of Wing Chun, and we're going to be introducing the Bong Sau today and the Pak Sau today. I want to make this as brief as possible so that the new people can get it, but the old people who have done this before, they still see it, and maybe this introduces a new concept into their way of thinking. Bong Sau, the action is a wing action, and I'll break down, you'll see why in a second. And then Pak Sau it's a parry action. Unlike JKD, and you know what, I don't, thank God I don't have a demonstrative person or a dummy right now to wind up showing you. It's not a parry as you parry it offline. And we're going to be talking about the importance of why Pak Sau is really an important movement. Pak Sau is an incredibly important movement. And I'll get to why I love it as much as I wind up doing too. Bong Sau is a misunderstood motion. You get Bong Sau, which is found in the form. It's in the third section. It's done, Bong, Tan, Tok Sau. And then you got a low Bong or a Dai Bong in the second section or in the second form. You're keeping centerline awareness, and the biggest thing about single arm training is that you're working in independence of your weapons. All right, so write this down. This is just very, very brief today. Bong Sau, which is your wing action. Pak Sau, which is your parry action. You're learning 2 motions at the same time, which we're going to talk about in a second. And you get centerline awareness and independence of weapons. So write this down for a second, and then we'll be right back. All right? Stand by. All right, let's just talk about some things right now on a Pak Sau and a Bong Sau concept. And I obviously, I'm not going to fill up the board with a bunch of things right now, a bunch of concepts. But when you do single arm training, I want you to keep in mind, why is single arm training so important? Well, one of the things that really, really, really gives you the most importance is the synergistic aspect between your center line and then your waist and your hip energy. Now, you have to keep something in mind. You may be doing a movement, and I know it's not the greatest of angles here. You may be sitting there doing this 100 times. Your Pak Sau comes out, and I would start, just my suggestion, if you start everything at chamber, where both hands are chambered, well, Izzo, where do I keep my arms chambered? Well, for the concept of sake, you want to sit there and have your arm naturally at a side position, but you're the one who's going to have to assess the judgment about where it sits up fine. If some people have theirs way up high, well, if you chamber your arm and it's way up high, how does it affect your shoulder? And if you chamber it way down low, how does that affect your bicep? Because you'll feel a tension on there too. You're going to have to give the baby bear bed. It's just right. And for me, it's just a top, right at the level of my my last rib. And my hands are nice and relaxed. They're not clenched up. It's like I'm holding a baby bird in my hand. I'm not killing it. And I'm just resting it up against my body. Now, again, remember the build of a body. My lats are kind of wide. My shoulders are tight. I don't draw my shoulders back like this and have my chest out. When you have a motion like this, I do it to stretch, but I don't do it to practice or train. When you have it like this, the problem is that all of a sudden, where's your intention? It's in my shoulders, it's in my chest, it's in my back. I want my attention in my hips. I want it in my center of gravity going down to the ground. So I'm rested, I'm relaxed. So yeah, that means my arms may be splayed out to the side for a little bit, but that's my natural body's ability. Everything has to be natural. So that's a concept of where you have it. Plus, you'll also see on a dynamic from a line going from your shoulder down to your wrist and then to your elbow. You just formed another triangle. Here's some things I want you to keep in mind. You're focusing on your center line, obviously. It's one of the most important things. Here is something to do. Now, here's the motion for both Pak Sau and Bong Sau. Okay? My Pak Sau, going to start out, I start with Tan, feeds up center, and then I should get this on center better. Here, I'm facing right at the camera, right? My tie is a center line mark. Tan, when I start getting out of a comfortable position, right, maybe about 45 degrees, a little bit more, I come out, I turn my hand to Pak Sau, and I stop where my vest ends. So it's where my shoulder and my pec meet. All right? So I start with a Tan Sau, and then I turn it into a Pak Sau. I'm feeding it from my elbow. So my wrist is nice and relaxed. And as I come out, I just open my Tan, and then I continue to wind up feeding my elbow forward. Here's something to look at from the side, just so you see. Tan, and then I stop. Now here's the deal. I'm not stopping here. And I want to get so much of this simple motion into a topic, and I don't want to make this an hour-long video, which can easily be done. The Pak Sau, number one, when you're going to feel it at a stopping motion to where your body tells you to. These are all things to self-discover. Is your shoulder sticking out forward? Is your shoulder too far back? I would, for training sake, feed your Tan Sau out. And when you feel your shoulder get to be a little bit too engaged, stop. Stop. You're training right now. You're training right now. In the finish of the movement, you're going to see your wrist is just slightly off center. You see the cuff of my shirt is on center, which puts my hand in line with my chest and my shoulder. And then from the side view, it stops. There's another triangle I just formed, and it's just past 90 degrees. So this is a 45-degree angle. I apologize. The first one is much closer, maybe a 15-degree angle. Okay, another time. Comes forward, stops. Tan turns into Pak Sau. A parry motion is a motion that is swept off. We're not doing that. When it comes down time to a partner, and I show you what the Pak is in an attack action, you're going to see is why it's so important. Again, forward, comes forward, boom, stops right there. So you're going to find as pressure goes on, the structure of this, especially when you point that pisiform bone forward, which really then becomes a Wu Sau. This art is beautiful. It is gorgeous. The self-discovery, you're going to be like, holy shit, that's you're just going to be blown away with how simple and absolutely profound it truly is in the long run. Stopping, and I'm forming a triangle. My shoulders here. Boom. Now here's the deal. All right, any one of these motions comes from this. There's your Bong Sau. Here's your Pak Sau. Here's your Bong Sau. Pak Sau. Bong Sau. To train the Bong Sau, the same way. Tan. And when you get just past that, I don't know, 15, 20, 30-degree angle, you don't lift your elbow so much as you thread your fingers going forward and allow your shoulder to relax. Your elbow will just fall naturally below your shoulder, and your hand will fall a little bit slightly naturally down below your elbow. Just a little bit. There's a slight angle there. Tan. And it corkscrews forward. And again, the wrist is on center. The fingers are going to be a little bit in line to where my shoulder and my chest meet. In this reference, it's great that I have a vest on because you can see that stopping point. Here's my Pak Sau. So the finishing position is the same place, okay? Bong Sau from the side. I'm feeding my elbow forward, turning my hand off. It's not this, turning my hand off, focusing on the wrist relationship to the elbow, to the shoulder. Okay? This side. I'm just really relaxing, putting out, and then here's my Pak Sau if I want it. Here's my punch if I want it. Here's my Tan if I want it. You're going to learn the immovable elbow theory as we go forward. Bong Sau is not a lifting action. Of course it can be. Bong Sau is not a clashing action. Of course it can be. So what I mean by that is any action that you put out in Wing Chun, this is not a parry action. Of course it can be. Okay, just because a concept suggests one thing does not mean that it can't violate itself and become something else. So that's why I say we're going to see there's no hook punch in Wing Chun. Well, the Pak Sau movement to the double Lan Sau movement, I argue that could be a hook punch. It can be. Why can't it? It's not meant to be. We weren't meant to fight in the first place, but we do. So it is what it is. So again, you got to keep an open mind as time goes on. So that's the mechanics of it. If you did this 1,000 times a day, nice and slow, you develop the mechanics on it, right? The mechanics on it. And it's a soft motion. You're going to learn that Bong Sau, if you saw Bong Sau in action, it's a bad Bong Sau. And we're going to talk about that as fighting goes on, as the context-wise goes on. People who try to block with Bong Sau are going to get punched in the face. Now keep in mind, can this deflect a punch to my face? Not even close. But we're training at this. Bong Sau, for me, obviously, if I used it, it's going to be all the way up here, isn't it? So, I mean, Bong Sau is going to be, that would be, consider the fact that somebody was punching, who is taller than me is punching, or somebody who's shorter than me punching, well, then Bong Sau becomes what the enemy does after you've established contact. And this is theory that I'm getting ahead of. Bong Sau is only used after contact is established. You never put Bong Sau out. You punch, you get an obstruction, and Bong Sau just appears. So Bong Sau is the date that you didn't know that you had as a backup. All right. What's more important? Okay, you got the motions down. Pak doesn't surpass your shoulder. It's at slightly past 45 degrees. It can become Bong Sau. It can become punch. All this stuff. All of these live together. These are your weapons, all right? Something that I really need you to focus on. That's the don't violate yourself. Do not overextend and violate your shoulder to where you're Pak Sauing way offline. This is what you will feel, and try this on your own. Stand in a Pak Sau position, chamber your arms, Pak Sau and leave it. Now here's the deal. In this position, I'm going to talk about this in a second, this is where your hips and your waist energy comes. Now, push past a little further. What do you feel? You're going to feel, number one, oh, my shoulder's tightening up. Number two, my attention's going that way, and I'm going to start to drift this way. The subtlety in this is, it's incomparable how huge it gets when you're fighting and you're chi sauing. Why do you think that when we chi sau, the worst thing people do is they look off into space? They want to sit there and mock people and go, oh, the guys who do this in Wing Chun, and I have been guilty, you are setting your students up for failure. You're setting yourself up for failure. If you chi sau and you're looking all over the place, your chi sau, Clint Cloys, and I will proudly say this, the first time I met Clint Cloys from Indianapolis Wing Chun, we chi saued. He's a bigger man than me. He's just as skilled, if not better than I am. We had two different backgrounds. When we chi saued, I was extremely pleased with my chi sau game against him. And he said after we chi saued that I had one of the best recovery games that he had in chi sau that he'd ever played. Because if you watch the video of Clint and I, the entire time I'm chi sauing him, I may be turned, but if he's my center, I am laser beamed focus on his sternum, the 5 points of his center line. Why? Because if my energy's that way, it recovers that way. If you chi sau and you are laser beamed right on somebody's sternum, I promise you, your game will open up. You will be so blown away, and you'll see Clint will lop sau me off to the side, but I'm right there right away because I'm so focused on his center, no matter where I was. When your wrist goes past and it violates that center, you're going to feel your attention go off to the side. That's why training slow and by yourself right now is a beautiful position. You don't need to Pak. I'm Pakking. It does nothing. If you Pak and place it out there, explore your body. Holy shit, my biceps tight. Why? Because I'm not in enough space. Oh, my shoulder's jammed up. Why? Because I don't have enough space. I feel tension in the outside of my deltoid because I'm drifting that way too much, which is doing what? Which is making my hips turn that way. I don't want that. These are other things you need to pay attention to, why you don't violate yourself in any movement. In your Bong Sau, in your Pak Sau, in your Jump Sau, none of them. The reason being, and this was it, my second teacher used to say with Gan Sau, which you'll get in, Gan Sau sweeps 5 inches past the leg. No, it doesn't. It never will, because when you sweep something past the leg, what you're doing is you're violating your own center line. This is not a martial art to defend. This is a martial art to attack with ruthless efficiency. You Pak and then come back online. You bong, you're back online. You Pak the side, you're back online. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference on anything. If you are not using your weapons with the concepts to attack going forward non-stop, you are not doing Wing Chun. I don't care who says what. There is no defense against Wing Chun. This movement with the tan and punch that we teach people off the back, it is not a simultaneous attack and defend at the same time. By attacking, you are defending. By attacking, you are defending. You're just doing something flashy here for a classroom purpose because there's nobody on the planet who's going to block a friggin' roundhouse punch and punch at the same time, and you're going to see it and go, oh shit, can't believe he did that. And I would love to see it in action, trust me. Moving forward, your waist versus your hips. You've got your hips; those are your hip bones. And remember, your hip bones are forming that iron steel beams, those that taut wrought iron that is pulling you down to the ground. The wire, right? That is holding you down. So even when you're doing these forms or these trainings, you should be thinking, my energy is going down into the ground, down into the ground. You do not violate that. The reason you do independent arm training, okay, we got your root you're focusing on your angles. This we're getting to in a second. You don't violate your center line, or your center line you focus on. You do not violate yourself. The most important thing right now, why you are learning independence, is for that recovery. If you choose to jump the gun too fast and you want to start doing your turning punch, you want to start doing your tan punch and your bong, I guarantee you, you will lose the fundamental foundation of attacking going forward. I spent, and I'm so glad I did, years even redeveloping the concept of non-stop facing. There's a difference between your hips, those bones, and your waist. Your hips can go forward while your waist turns. And I've done this in other videos. While you're in your form, and I know you can't see, plant yourself, dig your hips down into the ground, keep your hip bones forward and down, forward and down, forward and down, and turn your waist slightly. As you turn your waist to the right, take your right hip, focus it down into the ground, keep your left hip focused down to the ground. As you come back to center, don't let the tension and focus off your hips. Turn your waist to the left. As you're doing that, your left hip down into the ground, your right hip down into the ground. Your hips have got to be focused down and into the ground always, even when you move. Your waist can go either direction to pivot to create that energy if needed when you learn to separate the movements. And that is getting ahead of ourselves. For now, the purpose and the absolute necessity of training independently is to get your body to learn to communicate with this side by itself, and then ultimately have a conversation together. Think of ambidexterity, right? Think about you're able to write with your left hand, your right hand, boom, and then you can write out conversations at the same time. Think of something along the lines of that. You don't want to be too dominant, which is why I do not endorse the stance of a JKD with your strong side stance. Teach your weak side to be strong. You're going to see in Wing Chun, if you develop your weak side to be strong and somebody throws you offline, I don't have a strong left side, or I didn't. You bet your ass I do. My left side is just as dominant as my right side. Hence, the videos of Clint and I chi-sawing, you're going to see he may be pushing and pulling me all over the place, but I'm always centered. I'm always facing him. I'm always attacking him afterwards. Don't violate your center. Understand the individuality and the independence of your left and your right side training. It's so important. The motion may just be Pak coming out, but when you're doing this movement, when you stop at the end of it, stop. Take a pause. What's wrong with taking 30 seconds? Okay, I feel my ass engaged. It's digging my hips down into the ground. All right, my wrist is right off the center a little bit. I got my thumb is right in line with where my shoulder meets my pec. I'm not too far here with this angle. Now, from here, turn a little bit. Don't turn your waist or your hips. Turn your waist a little bit. Oh my gosh. As I'm turned, do you agree that if this was a parry to a strike, it would miss me completely? Because it got offline, right? But with your hips still focused forward, do you not feel that you could recover right away? From this position, turn your hips and your waist. Well, where's your center line going? Where's your intent going? Turn your intent back that way. Turn your hips back that way. Chum Q. Chum Q. That is why it's my favorite form. It teaches you to separate your waist and your hips, energy in opposite directions, and use them simultaneously. This is the Wing Chun. This is why I'm telling you. This is why it's superior. Bruce Lee did not invent anything new. Bruce Lee, in my opinion, he didn't understand this. He was as good as the first form, and that's it. Okay, this is why JKD cannot match Wing Chun. This is why Wing Chun is the graduate course of martial arts, in my opinion. But people do not take the time to talk about this. These are two movements today. Pak Sau, Bong Sau. But the everything that lives in here, turn your hand off. Wrist, pliable like bamboo. Nice. Your elbow, this point should be going forward. Wrist should be going forward for structure. If you turn this off, you'll collapse. If you turn this off, you'll collapse. Back up with your shoulder. Relax. Hips, shoulder off. Have somebody push into you a little bit. Oh my gosh. And then when they start pushing into you, if you feel collapsed, put your energy in your middle finger. Point your middle finger at them. You're not going to go anywhere. Turn your hips that way, you're going to collapse. Turn your hips this way, you're going to collapse. Keep your hips forward. Turn your waist. You're not going to go anywhere. Experiment with this. I cannot teach. It would take me hours upon hours and so long to teach this. I want to give fundamental concepts and basics of ideas just so you understand the importance of why you're training independence at this time. I know it's a lot of information. I hope that made sense. Again, I wanted to keep this relatively short today. And we're going to be continuing this on, but we'll be building on this. But this is why you train the form as much as you do. This is why you keep the independence. Why is Sifu have me doing this 1,000 times a class while everybody else is chi sao and I'm doing this? Because you're learning. And if you don't take the time to discover this, you're going to be pissed off that you chose to start in the first place, and you're going to be thinking you wasted your time. But for those of you who actually develop the skill, you're going to be pretty fucking unbeatable. All right, that's it. Any questions, put them in the comment section. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll pick up more form training on Monday. All right, thanks, guys.